Good evening and welcome to Solutions on Word, sponsored by Power and Interfaith Movement. This is one of your hosts, Bishop Dwayne Royster, Executive Director of Power, the state of Pennsylvania's largest multi-faith, multi-race organizing movement with 120 plus congregations of multiple faith traditions in 13 counties across the state. Normally tonight, I would say that with me is Amadi Braxton, activist, documentarian, philanthropist, counselor, coach, and consultant. But Amadi is off tonight. Tonight is her birthday. So everybody, when you get a chance on Facebook and others, just give Amadi a shout out and wish her a happy birthday. And so sitting in with me tonight, there we go, yes, it's Amadi's birthday, so we should celebrate that with her. Sitting in with me tonight, you're not confused. It's not 6 a.m. in the morning. This is not the power hour. This is Solutions on Word. But sitting in with me tonight as our guest co-host is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, Senior Pastor of Mother Bethel AME.
I was expecting Troy to give me some DMX.
Where my dogs at? Where my dogs
my dog?
So, how you doing this evening, Doc?
Well, this is called, I just want people to understand. So I was not there this morning at 6 a.m. because I had a conflict. And so Bishop Royster was kind enough to be like, yeah, that's cool. You could actually do 2 hours then tonight because it's Amadi's birthday. So I'm fine. I'm actually fine. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be back in familiar stomping grounds.
That's right. This was actually originally your slot in your time show. And then eventually you went in the mornings, and then I came on Friday night. So glad to have you here with us. Each week we come to you from 5 to 7 p.m. to bring you the organizers, movement and thought leaders, elected officials, and community members who are creating solutions to the issues that impact your life on the local, state, national, and international levels. On the board tonight, engineer extraordinaire Troy Wilmore, who is capably producing and engineering the show.
I'm your huckleberry.
There we go. All right, we got a couple special guests coming on tonight. At 5:20, we're going to be joined by Elder Melanie DeBose, the co-director of the Power Live Free team, who's going to come and talk about this really important issue. Now that we've we voted to have a police oversight board, what's happening with that? She's going to share some information with us about that with her other co-director, the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler, who's here with us. And then at 6 o'clock, we're going to be joined by the Reverend Alvin Herring, who's the Executive Director of Faith in Action, National Executive Director. Faith in Action is a conglomerate of organizations like Power. There are 40-plus organizations in 26 states and 3 countries in the world. And we're going to spend some time talking with Reverend Herring about this moment, where we're at, what he's imagining, how do we move forward, how do we heal, but also how do we move a policy agenda that's actually going to impact people deepest at the margins, and what solutions he sees on the horizon. But of course, each week we welcome you as our primary guest. To join in the conversation, feel free to call us at 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. You can also listen online at wordradio.com. Again, wordradio.com. And you can listen to us live on Facebook at onWURD, or just type in Word Radio into Facebook and it will come up. Now, look, do us a favor. Would you go right online right now on Facebook? And would you just go ahead and hit that share button for us so that you can share this out so other people can join with us this evening, and let them know that Solutions is on the air. If they're looking for solutions, this is the place to be to have that conversation on tonight. All right. Hey, Doc. So 2 firsts today. Actually, I saw you posted this on your Facebook page a little while ago, that there were 2 major firsts that happened today. One, we lost Hank Aaron, and I know you're into sports, so I'm sure you have some commentary on that. And then the second is that for the first time in U.S. history, we have an African-American Secretary of Defense. Former major 4-star general, Army General, Lloyd Austin was confirmed today after he had to get a special dispensation from the House and Senate to become the Secretary of Defense. But hey, why don't you start us off with Hank Aaron and what that meant to you?
Yeah, well, so listen, I mean, Hammer and Hank, right? And I'm thinking about Hank Aaron in particular. So he was in his prime, as I was born and coming up. I played baseball like everybody on my block. We played baseball, basketball, and football. And I actually played organized baseball up through the 8th grade. So, there were certain people that you always wanted to be. And so
Right.
if you can imagine a young boy in the early 70s playing baseball, everybody wanted to be Hank Aaron, just because of what he was known for. I mean, but I don't think what we fully understood in those days as children was everything that it took to become Hank Aaron. I mean, the fact that he even played in Atlanta for most of his career, as racist as that city was then, and some would say still struggles with the vestige of racism today, even in
Mhm.
spite of all the advances for black folk. Hank Aaron did it all with the backdrop of having to carry that as well. As he approached Babe Ruth's historic home run record, he
Mhm.
started to get death threats.
Mhm.
Now, what you said, you referenced what I posted today, that also on today, Lloyd Austin has become the first African American to hold the position of Secretary of Defense. And what is amazing to me is that in one lifetime, we have gone from something that is now a given that a black person can hold that position to people wanting Hank Aaron dead
Mm.
for home runs,
Right.
for
Right.
hitting a baseball.
Yep.
What do you think those same people think of Vice President Kamala Harris,
Mhm.
former President Barack Obama, and the litany of other people as well if they wanted a man dead for eclipsing a white man's home run record? I mean, I don't even know where you begin with something like that. But I think it also speaks to, again, to how we sometimes fail to appreciate what people had to go through for the things that today you and I just do without even thinking about it.
Absolutely. We stand on the shoulders of all those folk that were the first long before us. And it's unfortunate that we're actually at a day when Vice President Kamala Harris is a first, that General Lloyd Austin is a first, and that there are still so many firsts yet to happen in this country that claims to be, as powerful as it is and as righteous as it is, that we still have all these firsts to be able to work through the challenge of this particular moment. President Biden has put together one of the most diverse cabinets. If they all get through the Senate and get approved by the Senate, he'll have one of the most diverse cabinets in American history. Why did it take to 2020 to be able to get to that place? I don't fully understand. Why, with all the bravado and machismo we have when we go talking about how great and wonderful we are in the world, that we're not setting the standards in terms of diversity, in terms of opportunity, in terms of empowerment as well. Why we don't think that's important too.
Well, yeah, I mean, and boy, I mean, again, you talk about like why did it take so long? I think that for black folk in particular, we sometimes we have a sense of the simmering rage against us, which just is outrageous in and of itself, considering the only group of people here in mass that came unwillingly would be us, right?
Right.
But I think we fail to fully understand how deeply seated the rage against us is.
Hmm.
And perhaps we had a chance to see some of that at the Capitol on January the 6th, that it was a first. I mean, I keep thinking of like the younger generation who has continually kind of questioned us up until probably Trayvon Martin, and then certainly after Mike Brown stopped questioning, and then on and on and on.
Hmm.
But this was even a watershed moment for even so many more. This explosion of outrage that you couldn't separate it from the election of Raphael Warnock and a
Right.
John Ossoff, a black man and a Jewish man in Georgia. You couldn't separate it from, again, Vice President Kamala Harris, not only the first black person as a vice president, but also the first woman. So you
Hmm.
got the interesting mix of misogyny and racism. Those
Right.
good friends get to come together. So I think we need to really remember that while we think all on the surface all is good, that below the surface and just below the surface, that there is a lot of pent up rage directed our way.
Now we're actually running into a problem right now because I think that some of the last vestiges of white male power is being played out in the U.S. Senate. So Mitch McConnell is actually now threatening to hold up more of Senate confirmations and also to jam up the impeachment trials because the new majority leader, Senator Chuck Schumer, has said that he expects to get the articles of impeachment from the House sometime next week. But there is an ongoing debate between Schumer and between Mitch McConnell because McConnell wants to keep in place the filibuster, which would say that nothing can move through the Senate unless it has 60 votes, which would give, even though they are technically in the minority, it would still continue to give Republicans power in the Senate to control legislation and to basically control President Biden's agenda. So certainly Senator Schumer is like, nope, we just want to go back to straight majority because Democrats have 51 votes, and that's all they really need. Now, if they could hurry up and get D.C. in as a state, they could perhaps get a couple more Democratic senators in there, and then they would definitely throw it would throw it all the way over to the other side very comfortably. There had been hope that Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, who is considered one of the moderate votes, who had really threatened at one point to leave the Republican Party, she has recently come back and said, nope, I'm not leaving the Republican Party. I don't agree with the party, in a lot of things. But, even if she became an independent, she would still caucus with the Republicans and not caucus with the Democrats. Unlike Bernie Sanders and I can't think of his colleague up in Vermont, both of them who are independents but caucus with the Democrats. So we are in a very different moment in human history right now where we are contending with the last vestiges of white male power that is still trying to manifest itself in a deep way in the U.S. Senate right now, with Republicans still trying to maintain control when technically they shouldn't have any control.
Yeah. What do you make of this? That speaking of the Senate, so I just read that it's looking very unlikely again that the impeachment will go through. So they're not going to get the 67 votes needed. Probably wouldn't even get probably the 57. I mean, you want to believe that people have learned something about the last 4 years of the Trump presidency, but short of an impeachment that sends a real message to him, that friends and foe alike agree that what you did was so over the line that you can never even think about coming back here again. I mean, what are you making of this moment within the Republican Party? Are they just trying to just simply just run themselves out of business?
Well, I think they're trying to implode. I mean, it's actually kind of interesting. So one of the things that's happening that I think is causing the Republicans to fall back in line is that 107 U.S. Congresspeople, Republican Congresspeople, have called for Liz Cheney, who's the Republican caucus chair in the House of Representatives, to be pulled from her job because she voted to impeach Trump. Right. So there's actually, I mean, you and I talked about this on the morning show. There's actually going to be an internal war inside the Republican Party right now. And it looks like the Trumpikins, and many people know that I don't talk about them being Republicans. They're Trumpikins, and then they're Republicans, and they're two different things. The Trumpikins still have some fire and some vigor at this moment. And I think because it's still so fresh that they feel like they have power. I think Republicans, the more conservative Republicans that we have known traditionally, will begin to kind of step back in over the next couple of years. But because it's still so hot and heavy at the moment, and they're still getting all the emails and the letters and people questioning the election, Liz Cheney and others are like on the chopping block. And I think that that's what's happening in the Senate. People are afraid. They're afraid of what could happen in this moment. They don't understand this is a moment. It's not going to last forever. It will eventually pass. So anyway, we're up on our first break, and we will probably get back to this a little bit later in the show. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by Elder Melanie DeBose, co-director of Live Power, Live Free, which is working on criminal justice reform here in the city of Philadelphia. We'll be discussing the issues around the ballot initiative around police oversight that was voted into law and about what's happening with that and what we can expect to happen in the near future. And then a little bit later on, we're going to be joined by the Reverend Alvin Herring, Executive Director, National Executive Director of Faith in Action. You're listening to Solutions on Word with Dwayne Royster and special guest host, the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio. We've got a lot going on this afternoon. First of all, police activity still out there on the Schuylkill Expressway eastbound between Conshohocken and the Conshy Curve. Right lane blocked. Delay goes back to 202. Vine Expressway, an accident on the westbound side approaching the Schuylkill. That's off to the side, but the delay goes all the way back to 8th Street. On the northeast extension, we're watching a crash now on the northbound side between Quakertown and Lehigh Valley off to the shoulder. On the 30 bypass westbound, there's a crash between 322 and 340. Two right lanes are blocked there. Delay goes back to 100. A crash from Cherry Hill, 38 eastbound at Cuthbert Boulevard. Two right lanes blocked. That delay goes back to about Route 70. And a crash on the 42 freeway southbound at 295 off to the side. Report brought to you by ExpressPros.com. Looking for an easier way to find your next call center job or accounting job? It's time to get to know Express Employment Professionals. Visit ExpressPros.com to find one of more than 830 locations to support any job search, and there's never a fee. For more traffic info, log on to SigAlert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Tonight, partly cloudy, breezy, turning much colder, a low of 24. Feels like temperatures between 10 and 15 degrees to start on Saturday. Then by the afternoon, partly sunny and very cold with wind gusts up to 35 to 40 miles per hour. A high of 34, but feels like temperatures around 19 degrees in the afternoon. By Sunday, sunny and very cold to start. Feels like temperatures in the morning around 10 degrees. Clouds increase towards the afternoon, a high of 36, with feels like temperatures around 25. And by Monday, snow and a wintry mix develops late for us, a high of 38. Tuesday, more snow, sleet, and rain at times, a high of 34. Wednesday, we start to dry out, but the cold air locks in. Daytime highs stay around 35. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing sites at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. The second testing location has been added at Richard Allen Preparatory Charter School. Testing is on Wednesdays and Fridays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
Need to replace your Social Security card? In most states, you can request one online with a My Social Security account. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can also get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster, along with special guest host, the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. We're grateful that you are here today. Amadi is out tonight. Tonight is her birthday, so everybody, do a toast for Amadi and say happy birthday to her. Let us know on Facebook that you wish her happy birthday as well, or on YouTube, so that she can go back and see that later, a bit later on. You have your water, I see. That's very nice of you to toast her with the water. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing. Well, while we're waiting for Reverend DeBose to get on with us, I think you had a response that you wanted to talk about with that. You were asking a question actually during the break about that. I'm just curious what you're thinking.
Well, I guess I'm just, just amazes me about people not being concerned about legacy. And I guess it doesn't matter to everybody, right? Mm-hmm. But, how people in the future will remember us, I think ought to be important, right? And particularly for those persons who are in privileged positions of leadership. You're helping to run the country. If you are in the Senate, that's rarefied air, 100 people at a time. Mm-hmm. And if you're in the leadership of that body, to know that history is going to write about you a lot. And when you think of a Mitch McConnell, for example, history is going to be extremely unkind to Mitch McConnell. I don't care what he thinks. But when you look back on the 50s and 60s at the people who voted against the Voting Rights Act, who fought against the Civil Rights Act, who fought against the Fair Housing Act, and who turned water hoses on marchers and protesters, people who fought to maintain Jim Crow, history has not been kind to them. Mm-hmm. And in the same manner, it's going to be the same thing. So I'm struck by something that happened today, and one that happened historically. So when Hank Aaron, speaking of his passing today, when he was voted into the Hall of Fame, it was not unanimous like it should have been. He was the home run champion. In baseball, that is it. When you become the home run champion, hands down, this is before steroids. It is what it is. It should have been absolutely unanimous. But 3% of the writers who had the chance to vote on him chose, for whatever their own reasons, not to vote for him. Likewise, today, 2 of the senators who had a chance to vote for Lloyd Austin's historic appointment as the Secretary of Defense chose not to. And I'm thinking to myself, again, it's always this group that for whatever reason finds themselves on the wrong side of history. And I just think that in a larger context, that history is going to be extremely unkind to a number of people, chief among them, all of those who enabled the last 4 years to happen and all of the consequences we will suffer as a result of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there we need to unpack some more. But actually, Elder Melanie DeBose is now joining us online. Elder Melanie DeBose, who's the senior pastor at Evangel Chapel, president of Children's Mission, and co-director of Power Live Free. Welcome to Solutions on Word. How are you tonight, Elder?
I'm well, Bishop, and good evening to you and your guest host, Dr. Tyler. Happy birthday to Amadi Braxton in her absence. What you got?
Well, we are, thank you for agreeing to get on tonight, and it's actually great to have both the Power co-directors of Live Free on at the same time. So big win, 79.2% of the vote for Police Oversight Commission here in the city of Philadelphia on the election in November. But what's happened since then, and what can we expect to happen in the near future? Where is this piece going? And this has to do with the fact that we voted to create a police oversight board that will have oversight of policing, that will replace the police accountability board, and we're hoping it'll be a board with teeth and power. What's happening, and where are we at with that right now?
Well, we certainly continue to honor those who voted yes on that amendment or on that ballot question. And we have been working vigorously for the last several years to move this particular piece of legislation whereby the citizens of Philadelphia will be in command of their own destiny with regard to the police. As we have stated before, we have discovered that the police are relatively incapable of policing themselves. And the Oversight Commission, the Citizens-Based Oversight Commission, will give citizens of Philadelphia an opportunity to have voice in their own destiny. So since the vote, the vote for yes, we have been working with the Public Safety Commission, with the chair, who is Councilman Curtis Jones. We've been working with him and his team and having communication back and forth, and certainly the Defenders Association has been a part of that, and several of our other allied groups. We have been working with them to develop a proposal that will be robust and will offer both a formation and a function for this oversight commission that will really do justice on behalf of the citizens of Philadelphia, not just on behalf, but it will be representative of the citizens of Philadelphia. And right now there's discussion and contention as to whether or not it should be elected or selected. And our reality is that a selected board may be able to offer the kind of representation that we want, while an elected board, many of us on the team believe that that might be the most viable solution. It may not give every citizen of Philadelphia who would be interested in participating on this board an opportunity to do so, because unfortunately there's a lot of money passed along in the election process. So I don't know, we may be looking at a selected board that will be representative of the community. And while we're looking at the formation of this Citizens Oversight Commission, we're also looking at the function. And you have heard us say before, we want it to be robust. It has to have teeth, and that means it needs to have investigatory powers. It needs to be more than adequately staffed. It needs to have subpoena power. It needs to be able to really get a hold of the data, the raw data that police develop or collect in an investigation process. We need to be able to access all of that, and this team needs to be able to move activity on with regard to the police. We need to be able to move activity. So if we say they need to be reprimanded, they get a reprimand, and these things are not going to be rescinded in the manner that they are when police officers commit an egregious act. If they are worthy of some kind of recrimination, then that needs to happen. So that's where we are. We're looking for just the wording that will offer the citizens of Philadelphia a robust program or robust commission that will really allow them to see action when egregious acts are railed against them.
So let me ask you both, will the power, if the commission goes into place, the Oversight Commission goes into place, who gets to prosecute? Is it a special prosecutor, or would it still stand in the district attorney's office? What is it that power's pressing for in this moment with regard to that?
Yeah, so let me just say, and thank you for that, Elder Melanie, for laying that out so well. So there are a lot of different models around the country, and I think the biggest thing for people to do in this moment is really set some realistic expectations about what this will and will not do. This is, I'm going to borrow a phrase from Elder Melanie right now. You know, we work together every day. She always says, this is just the first bite of the apple. Did I quote you right?
Yeah, it's the first iteration. We have miles to go before we sleep.
There's another one, right? So, but this is the first bite of the apple. We're going to have to go back and get more changes to the city charter. This one simply allowed this to move out of the mayor's office and become independent. But, you know, we want to go back for a charter, for example, to have the power to hire and fire the commissioner. We want to have the ability to ultimately make discipline recommendations, and it would be great for an independent commission to even carry out discipline. So I think to answer your question on the short term, though, would be to really be the lead investigator on issues of alleged police brutality and misconduct when it comes to the citizens. So, for example, in Chicago, which is a pretty strong model, but certainly not perfect, they're still trying to tweak theirs as well. When there's an issue that involves an officer and body cam is in question, their independent oversight board, which is called COPA, they actually see the body cam footage first, before the police department and before the officer. When Philadelphia rolled their body cam footage out, by comparison, the original policy, they've done some changes, but originally the policy was the on-duty officer at the end of the shift could go back and review the body camera footage and then adjust their report based on what they actually saw on their footage. So what we want is something that would allow an independent source to really be the lead investigator, the first investigator. Now, if you ask me, my wish list, it would be to get rid of internal affairs, and this would ultimately replace internal affairs, take that $23 million a year, and then hire people who have the skills and expertise to actually do real investigations and are simply calling balls and strikes. They're not in there with any vested interest one way or the other. They just want to see the truth come out.
Wow. And so, what are the steps ahead to be able to put in this kind of oversight commission that has real power? Like, what has to happen in the next few weeks, few months? This legislation was voted on by law, it's supposed to be enacted and in place in 45 days after the election. We're beyond that at this point. So what has to happen here?
So the Public Safety Commission that is overseen by City Councilman Curtis Jones, in my truth, they have taken a little too long in developing this. If I can use President Biden, for example, he, knowing that he was president-elect, he started setting the wheels in motion so that the day that that he was confirmed, 48 hours or so ago, he was able to lay down those executive orders. He had his team in place. Now he's just waiting for the showdown, the confirmations and the like. If we had moved as expeditiously on this, if Curtis Jones and his team had moved as expeditiously on this, we might have been ready to go with something in 45 days. But as of now, we haven't seen anything that has enough grit, moxie, teeth to say, okay, we're ready to go. What we have discovered in our research, though, Bishop, is that the other municipalities across the nation, to get where they are, they have taken 5, 10, 12, 15 years. It is our perspective that we don't have that kind of time. The citizens cannot afford to be mistreated in the manner that they have, and we just don't have a lot of time. We do recognize that there are some statewide legislation or charters that have to be overturned, but we have to move. We won't get it in 45 days, and if we do, it'll probably be weak and watered down, and it will take too many more steps. So what is going to happen is Power Live Free is going to have to push, develop its own proposal, and then make the city officials honor that proposal, because it will reflect the will of the people, and it may reflect some need, as we mentioned, for charter changes, but it will have teeth, it will be robust, and it will be citizen-led.
That's great. I mean, I think you're setting reasonable expectations, right? There's still going to have to be work done even after this first bit of legislation is put into place, and that we will. So this is actually what you're also telling us. This is going to be a long-term fight towards real solution around policing in Philadelphia.
Absolutely, but we don't want it to be as long as some of our neighbor cities like Chicago and San Francisco and Oakland, California, even Atlanta, Georgia. Some of our cities have really been struggling for years to get this kind of oversight, and they still aren't satisfied. We don't want to be 12, 15 years down the road. We need the Oversight Commission where our citizens are in control of their own destiny. We need that implemented sooner than later. So we're going to ask for everything. We're going to shoot for the, how do you say that? Shoot for the moon, get some stars, and then go back.
We appreciate that. Well, thank you, Elder Melody DeBose, co-director of Power Live Free, for joining us tonight. We're going to continue to have you back on because we want to get regular updates about what's happening with this, and also extended invitation for folk to be able to join into that campaign as well. So thank you, and we appreciate you. We are now up on our next break, and when we come back, the phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065. If you have questions about policing, you have questions about oversight, you want to talk about what's happening at the federal level, the lines are open, 215-634-8065. You're listening to Solutions on Word with Dwayne Royster and the special guest host, co-host, Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
We've got a lot going on tonight, so let's get right to it. It's a crash on 95 southbound, right at the Commodore Barry Bridge, blocking the left lane. The delay here stretches on back to Ridley Park. Meanwhile, 95 southbound, a disabled box truck between Academy Road and Cottman Avenue has the center lane blocked. That traffic's really backing up. 95 northbound at the Betsy Ross Bridge. It's an accident blocking the right lane. That delay goes back to Allegheny Avenue. A crash on the Vine Expressway. This is westbound approaching the Schuylkill. It's off to the side, but the delay goes all the way back to 8th. And an accident on the PA Turnpike westbound between Norristown and Valley Forge. We've got the 2 left lanes blocked there. Report brought to you by ExpressPros.com. Looking for an easier way to find your next call center or accounting job? It's time to get to know Express Employment Professionals. Visit ExpressPros.com to find one of more than 830 locations to support any job search, and there's never a fee. For more traffic information, log on to SigAlert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Tonight, partly cloudy, breezy, turning much colder, a low of 24. Feels like temperatures between 10 and 15 degrees to start on Saturday. Then by the afternoon, partly sunny and very cold with wind gusts up to 35 to 40 miles per hour. A high of 34, but feels like temperatures around 19 degrees in the afternoon. By Sunday, sunny and very cold to start. Feels like temperatures in the morning around 10 degrees. Clouds increase towards the afternoon, a high of 36, but feels like temperatures around 25. And by Monday, snow and a wintry mix develops late for us, a high of 38. Tuesday, more snow, sleet, and rain at times, a high of 34. Wednesday, we start to dry out, but the cold air locks in. Daytime highs stay around 35. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Ship with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler, who's sitting in for the birthday celebrating Amadi Braxton. All right, Doc. So I gotta just for a moment of levity here. So I posted on Facebook earlier today. I was like, was there a planned campaign of women in pearls and Chuck sneakers on Inauguration Day? There were more pictures of black women in pearls and wearing Chuck sneakers. Now, I found out later on that there were actually Facebook groups that were actually put together months ago to do this, but I did not realize that. But I mean, I don't know, I saw your wife had her pearls on, my wife had her pearls on. I don't know, what you were feeling about that.
First of all, it's not like you could ever tell any AKA anything. This is the first thing. Ask me how I know.
How you know?
My wife, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, Leslie's aunt, cousins, just, a whole family full. So they have much pride. And so it's not like you can tell them anything. And now, I mean, come on. It's just, it's unstoppable at this point. And so this was their week. And like you said, again, I don't know how, AKAs have been rocking the pearls and Chucks ever since
almost all the sororities do. They all have pearls, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that everybody had the pearl. I know AKAs, really like honor them, related to their founders and what have you. So I didn't know it was like a thing for everybody. Frats are a little bit different. We all have our kind of unique way that we refer to our founders. And but yeah, so I don't know. It was an incredible moment of solidarity that happened, I think, really after she received the nomination, which was beautiful. Watching, first of all, I mean, because, like, let's be honest, Deltas and AKs, sometimes can kind of have, some differences of opinion. But it was like immediately that the Deltas jumped on and said, we're on board with this 100%. And from there on, the floodgates opened. And it was such a, I just thought it was a beautiful moment for solidarity of Black women and for the sororities to really lead the way and put aside all their differences. And they blended into this beautiful sea of pink and green, red and white, blue and white, blue and gold, and chucks and pearls, all celebrating this. And they viewed it as their success and their victory, not one particular group. And I think that's the way we should all see it.
Yeah, I mean, so absolutely it was their victory, and it was their victory in more ways than one, right? I mean, shout out to Stacey Abrams and to NSA Ford and to all the Black women in Georgia that really brought home both the Senate and helped to deliver for President Biden and Vice President Harris as well. Yeah, I just thought it was amazing. My wife, we're sitting there watching the inauguration. I canceled meetings to watch the inauguration. And I'm sitting there, and I'm in the house. I'm like chilling out. I'm all comfy. Originally, she was downstairs and, just wearing casual clothes. And then and once they started right before they started, she goes to run upstairs. I'm like, what is she doing? Maybe she had to go to the bathroom or something. I don't know. And so, next thing I know, she comes downstairs. She's all dressed up, got lipstick on, got pearls around her neck, wearing sneakers, Chuck Taylor sneakers. And I'm sitting there like, wow. And then I discovered that all her sisters, like her real sisters, they're all wearing the exact same outfit. And they took a picture together. But then I go back, and then later on in the day, I'm looking at all of my Facebook feed and my Twitter feed and Instagram feed, and it's nothing but women with pearls and Chuck Taylor sneakers on. And I'm just totally amazed. I asked the question, are there any pearls left in the world? Because I think African-American women have bought every single pearl that exists in the world right now.
Listen, if I could start 2020 over again, I would invest money in Converse.
Yes.
I'd buy Converse stock along with face mask stock and rubber disposable glove stock. I mean, because 2020, oh, and by the way, toilet paper and paper towels. 2020
Absolutely.
was clearing shelves off. And you're right. I mean, brother, it was hard out there for, poor people who work at Foot Locker and Payless Shoe Store trying to fight people off. Like, I'm sorry, these are on hold for somebody.
Yeah, it was a little wild. I was like, wow, that's really deep. That's really deep that's all that's happening. And I mean, let's just, because we haven't been with the listeners, well, in the morning we have been, but the evening listeners haven't been there. So, first of all, let me just say that I'm beginning. Michelle Obama slayed. And I love the fact that both she and Vice President Harris were wearing African-American designers, and there were other folk that were wearing African-American designers that day as well. I just so appreciate the fact that when our folk rise up, we bring other folk with us, right? And I think that that's absolutely important. But can we just talk about the fashion statement of the day from the inauguration?
Which one?
Can we talk about Bernie Sanders and his mittens?
Oh, man, let me tell you. Bernie is the gift that keeps on giving. And I mean, even when he doesn't want to be the story,
yes,
Bernie becomes the story.
Yes.
Kind of the story of his life, right? He's already probably sitting there pissed that this is not his, second inauguration.
Yes.
But he's there. I'm a team player. I hear, I'm a team player. I'm a team player. Okay. So you want this old guy instead of this old guy. I'm here. Leave me alone. And even when trying to be by himself, Bernie gets dragged into the story, and he will never live this down.
Absolutely.
Have you seen him at my church?
Do you put him up at your church?
Yeah,
I have
let's
not
put
seen
him at our
that one.
church.
Did
And
you
we
post
ask people to caption it. My favorite was our parking guy's name is Lloyd. Said when Lloyd won't give you a parking space.
That's actually really, really funny. A couple other people have added to your list of things to invest in for 2020. Ant Young says alcohol wipes, and the other thing that he said to, and Lisa Gale Zeitlin said the same thing. Need to invest in Zoom.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, pick up some Zoom. I hear you on that. Yeah, we should have picked up on those things a little bit earlier. That would have been very important. How are you coming into 2021 right now? What's your thinking? You have become quite the political operative, and you were back and forth to Georgia working on the Ossoff and the Warnock campaigns. Hashtag Black Bikers Vote. If anybody asked you about that, that is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler that was doing that work. You were leading biker rallies in Georgia and led a biker rally here in Philadelphia. Tell me about that. What's happening with that for you?
So listen, I mean, that first of all is just amazing. The idea that, and what I found in this election cycle in particular is that groups that typically don't really get involved in politics, they kind of stay out of the fray, especially like in the biker world. You know, you and I both ride. We've been in a club before. And so, I mean, clubs can be kind of funny. And so, but I discovered that even the 1% clubs wanted in on this. I mean, now 1%ers, quote unquote outlaw clubs, they kind of sometimes, they're just there to say it's cool or it's not cool, but they don't really get into it. But one of the largest 1% clubs, black clubs in the country, Chosen Few. When we rolled into Columbus, Georgia to ride, these guys, they were like in their colors, and it was the largest club that showed up that day. They showed up 12 or 14 deep. And they wanted to ride right in the front, and we were like happy to oblige them. And, as their leader said on that day, he said, when you think about the black motorcycle set, historically, this is what it was about. It started with folk who had come out of the Great Migration to cities like Oakland with the East Bay Dragons, L.A., Chosen Few, Thunder Guards here on the East Coast, Wheels of Soul, Buffalo Soldiers, all these clubs, a lot of them had come out of these experiences of segregation and racism. And so there was always that social edge. And over the years, kind of the partying part and the partying image took over. But I found a lot of people who were receptive, and they were like, look, we should make this an annual thing. Right. So in Georgia, we had a big ride in Albany, as I said, in Columbus and in Atlanta. We're looking at doing this around the country for other election cycles. And for me, this is a nonpartisan event because it's easier to get folk together when you don't name it or attach it to a candidate. But just let me tell you, on my bike, I had a big red, black, and green, the African-American flag. And that thing was, 3 by 6 feet. And, I got a black road glide. And so that thing was rolling, whipping down the street, and I was in the front. And when communities saw us coming and they saw that flag, one brother had a bottle in his hand. But, bruh, when he saw that flag, he saw those bikes, he straightened up like he was in the Army. Saluted, threw his fist up. And but that was the kind of reaction that we received. And that's what we were going for, which is to say to the community that if this community says it's time to get active and vote, then there's no excuse for anybody else. Because if bikers are not too cool to vote, you can't tell me that you're too cool to be involved. It was great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, look, we have a caller. I know we got a guest coming on at 6, so let me see if we can get Patrick in before we go to break. Patrick from New Jersey, welcome to Solutions on WURD.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, Patrick, how you doing?
Good. How you guys feeling?
Good, thanks. Welcome to Solutions.
Wait. Is that white chocolate cannabis?
It is white chocolate cannabis.
My man.
You can't. You listen. I'm gonna. It's 2021. Let's leave that stereotype behind because now I'm what they call legal white chocolate cannabis because I live in New Jersey.
I got you, Patrick. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to tell the Reverend and yourself. Last year the Reverend hooked me up with the with the Reverend over at the First Unitarian Church. And a little-known fact, now a new fact, is that Dr. Martin Luther King, that's the church from where he heard Dr. Mordecai Johnson speak that convinced him of the method of nonviolence. And this week we're going to be getting together with the Pennsylvania Historical Society or Preservation Office and putting in an application to have the church listed on the National Registry of Historic Places for its connection with the speech that Dr. King heard in 1950, November 19th of 1950. So I wanted to thank Mark for hooking me up and let him know that I'm now working with the church staff and also the Historic Preservation Office of Pennsylvania, and who are much, much friendlier than the Historic Preservation Office in New Jersey regarding the Camden House where Dr. King was staying. So I just wanted to give a little update and a thank you, and also wanted to say that hopefully, soon people will be able to go there and have a little celebration to commemorate the event.
Awesome. That's
Bishop,
great.
So Patrick is being very modest, but let me just say, that event that night where Dr. King heard Mordecai Johnson, that everything that we've experienced as a result of the civil rights movement, you can almost trace it right back to that moment, right down here in Center City, Philadelphia. And nobody knew what happened at that church. We thought it was at the old Fellowship House up off of Broad, North Broad. But, I mean, the research that Patrick has done here and what he's doing over in Camden is amazing, and Matt is really celebrate him. And, I mean, I'm telling you, these are gems that we need to know. So, Matt, I just appreciate you, Patrick.
I appreciate that. And you know what's interesting is that, the Fellowship House is the one that sponsored that event. And the woman who founded the Fellowship House, her name is Marjorie Penny, who, by the way, this woman did incredible civil rights work. The Fellowship House was founded in 1931 when she was 22 years old, after she went to a meeting where it was a meeting where there's black and white people, but black people had the chance to speak and tell their experiences, and she couldn't believe it. So the Fellowship House started in 1931, literally did incredible work all through the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and she said, when interviewed in the 70s, that if the only thing that she accomplished in her life was to have had that meeting between Mordecai Johnson and Martin Luther King, then she would have been satisfied with her life's work. So, yeah, it's a pivotal event, and the good thing is the Fellowship House was torn down decades ago. It was at 1431 Brown Street in North Philadelphia, and so there was never a chance to be able to celebrate it in the building or at a place. But now that we know that it did not happen there and it happened at the church, there's an actual place to celebrate it. And the great thing is there is a rumor in the church for the last 50 years that it happened there, but nobody could ever confirm it. So now it's been confirmed.
Well, Patrick, we really appreciate that information. That's actually helpful to know. And our friend, the Reverend Abby Tennis, is the pastor over at First Unitarian. So we'll have to have some deeper conversation with her about that in the real near future. Patrick, thanks for giving us a call here on Solutions on Word. Well, we are up on a break. And when we come back on the other side, we're going to be joined by the Reverend Alvin Herring, National Executive Director of Faith in Action. You're listening to Solutions on Word with Dwayne Royster and Mark Kelly Tyler. We'll be right back.
Don't miss an unforgettable musical event on the Opera Philadelphia channel. Tyshawn Sori's Cycles of My Being. Cycles of My Being explores the realities of being a black man in America today through highly personal and powerful songs, asking the question, what does it mean to love a country that doesn't love you back? Starring world-famous tenor Lawrence Brownlee, Cycles of My Being available on demand on the Opera Philadelphia channel. Watch it on TVs, computers, and mobile devices. Rent Cycles of My Being at operaphila.tv.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the Mattress Man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD works.com.
Work, 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 work.
Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD with Dwayne Royster and special guest host Mark Kelly Tyler. Amadi's out partying, celebrating her birthday tonight. Be safe out there, Amadi, in case you're listening. And folk are wishing you happy birthday online, so you can check that out just a little bit later on. All right, we're going to be joined now by the Reverend Alvin Herring, who is the National Executive Director of Faith in Action, the United States' largest faith-based organizing movement. It's 46 different organizations in 26 states. Almost 2 million families of many faith traditions organizing for social justice and for opportunities for all to be able to live, not only here in America, but in places like Rwanda, in places like Haiti, in places like parts of South America. Reverend Herring, welcome to Solutions on WURD. How are you tonight?
I'm well, dear brother. It's always an honor to join you and the eminent Mark Kelly Tyler. Particularly now, given the momentous events of the last, I would say the last 2 weeks, but really it's been of the last year or two. So it's really an honor to be with you and your listening audience tonight.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to join with us. You know, you lead a large movement of people of faith that are working on a lot of issues including criminal justice reform, including immigration reform, including many economic issues, climate justice. And I'm curious about how you are imagining this new moment that we're in, and how you're thinking about it, how you're trying to move forward right now.
You know, Bishop, this is a remarkable moment that we're in. As a black man in America, it is a moment that is really challenging me at my very core to figure out how I can love a country that has historically not loved me back. And how I can do that in a way that not only brings benefit to the people that I care most about, which are the people that raised me, the culture that I'm from, black folks in this country. But I also care about all of God's children. And I'm really being, I think, like most of us, challenged to figure out, you know, how do we do the work of justice? How do we do the work of love? How do we do the work of community building in this new moment, having probably just dodged the bullet of a particular kind of fascism that we've seen grow in other countries and metastasize all throughout the world. But now here we are with an elected government that on its face speaks a lot about intending to work towards the benefit of people of color, everyday people, poor and working people, but over time and over history has shown that it has often fallen far short. So I'm probably like also a lot of your listeners, I celebrated with Jubilee when Barack Obama was elected. I worked hard to ensure that everyday people would have a chance to vote. And then we watched the country not move very far, actually. And there's kind of been a fresh look at what those years were about. Well, here we are now in this new moment with a president newly elected, comes from that stable of a political culture. And the open question is, well, will this be enough to really govern in this new moment where people are really hurting? The pandemic is raging all over the world. People are struggling to make ends meet. There's real hunger in America. So I've got a lot of questions. Thank goodness I got a lot of faith too. So yeah, I'd love to parse through some of this with you and your audience.
Well, let me ask you this question, right? So one of your previous things you used to do was you were the executive director of the Muhammad Ali Institute for Peace and Justice, and in Louisville, Kentucky, which is your hometown. And I might have got the name a little bit wrong, so feel free to correct me on that. I got it right? Okay, great. So, you know, is there, I mean, this was your work, right? Is there a space for reconciliation in this moment and healing in a country that's so deeply divided and ideologically, it's not even. I mean, some of it is faith, but it's a lot of ideology, and some of it like crazy ideology. Can we heal? Can we find a way forward?
You know, this is the question that I'm sure you get all the time because you are a black man leading in the fight for social justice. You are an ordained reverend. You're a bishop. People ask this question of black clergy all the time. Is there room for reconciliation? And the way I've consistently answered that question over the last couple of decades, for sure, is yes, there's plenty of room for reconciliation, but that's further down the line in terms of what needs to happen in this country with respect to race, class, gender, sexual orientation, religious difference. That's, getting to the moment where we can reconcile, where we can say, turn to one another and say, I seek your forgiveness and I seek your community. I seek your fellowship, and I seek your willingness to extend me grace. That comes at the end more so of the process, and not at the beginning. And this is where we keep coming up short as a country. There is a history that we must contend with, and one could easily look back at the events of the last year or two and recognize that our consistent historical failure to deal with what happened in this country and how this country was formed and how it raced to the head of its class in terms of nations around the world, unless and until we take a frank, public moment to both acknowledge what has happened, show accountability to what has happened, publicly lament for what has happened, and then repair the damage, unless and until we do that, reconciliation is nothing more than putting a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. It will not sustain us. It will not last. It will not hold back the infection that we saw erupt on January the 6th. It is wholly incomplete in making good and doing justice where it most needs to be done.
So, Rev, help us understand, what does that look like in real practical terms? What does that look like? What are the steps that we should be taking right now? And I mean, it's white folk have to take steps, black folk got to take. What steps should be taken right now?
I appreciate the question. That's a very solid question, and I've been really working on an answer, not just rhetorically an answer, but through the work of faith and action. We've been working on an answer to that question. Mm-hmm. And I think here's where we are, and I'd love, again, to know how you see this, how Reverend Tyler sees this, how your audience sees this. But here's what we know, and I've been saying this a lot lately. Justice should be what faith looks like in public. Mm-hmm. So for those of us who profess the faith, that faith will not ultimately serve us. It will not get us to heaven. It will not bring down the kingdom of God unless that faith unless that faith compels us and propels us to do the work of justice. Absent that work, it is just fickle, romanticized, almost even idolatry, because it is inconsistent with what Jesus said for me as a Christian. That I was to form in my heart a radical love that would not only be extended to those who are different than me, but a love that would be applied to the political, social, cultural, and economic realities of the moment in which I find myself in. So, Bishop Royster, to answer your question, first we have to recognize that it looks like the work of justice. Mm-hmm. Over the holiday, the Lord put on my heart to study love, and to study what the Bible and other faith traditions have to say about love. And I came across, of course, Dr. King's discourse on love, where he took us through the evolutions of love, or the revolutions of love, from eros to filial to agape, and helped us understand when we arrived at agape love that was supposed to be a universal love, where we care for all of God's sisters and brothers and care for the planet and all creation as well. And I think that is absolutely on target. But far be it for me to critique Dr. King, but let me just offer my 2 cents to it. And that is that there's a further love. There's a further love. And that further love is attached to justice. If you really want to be about love, you must be about justice. You must recognize injustice, see it for what it is. You must have an allergy at the soul, at the genetic, at the granular level for anything that is unjust. You must speak up. You must develop political power. You must create alliances and collaborative efforts. You must push the wheels of government, and you must step into formal political leadership yourself. And that's not just for you and I and the chattering class, but it's for everyday people in this country and around the world. Now, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, so Reverend Al, I just want to say, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that my profound disappointment with America, and you're starting to see it now even with this, we talked about the impeachment trial that's coming, and the fact that Republicans, even in spite of everything that has transpired, the fact that there were insurrectionists, seditionists, domestic terrorists looking for them as well, right? Looking to do them harm, and they recognize that if you don't check it, at some point it's going to continue to fester, just go underground for a while, but it's going to come back. You think about Timothy McVeigh and the horrific moment in Oklahoma City. He didn't just kill Democrats. He killed Democrats, Republicans, black folk, white folk, children. And when you indulge and enable this kind of behavior, you set yourself up. I haven't seen nothing yet that suggests to me that America is that white America in particular is interested in doing the real work, and not all of white America. Of course, we know that we work with tons of allies, but the vast majority that allowed a Trump to be president, that they are interested at all in really owning what happened in the past. They are committed to a lie and a myth. The 1776 Project proves that. And my grandmother had an 8th grade education, Bishop. She didn't go to seminary or even high school, but she was the theologian in the family. And she said, don't plant weeds and come back looking for corn. Now, her Arkansas theology was right on. And I just, there's only one place that you can go if you don't deal with this, and that's down. And, don't shoot the messenger for the message. It's not my message. This is biblical. It's universal. Every faith tradition adheres to it. Even non-theists adhere to it. You reap what you sow. And there is a way toward repentance and reconciliation, but it cannot be done on the basis of a lie. And I thought surely after the Capitol event, things would change. But seeing them double down now, I am just, God knows. I mean, honestly, I'm a person of faith and have great optimism, but I don't know where this goes from here long term.
Well, I can't disagree with you at all, and I love the last piece that you added because it's true for me as well. I'm a person of faith. I'm not generally a person of optimism or hope because in this day, hope and optimism is too often akin to sitting back doing nothing but feeling like you're doing everything. It's not that I don't believe in hope. It is not that I don't believe that there's a better tomorrow. I would rather, though, take my emotional, psychological, and spiritual energy and place it where I think it needs to be placed right now, and that is deepening our faith and listening more carefully to what our faith and what God and what the Holy Spirit, no matter what tradition you're in, however you approach the divine, what that essence is telling you to do to make your situation better and to make the situation better for those who you are required to care about. I could not agree with you more that there's nothing that's being said or done right now that shows that this country is able, willing, prepared, inclined to speak to the fundamental injustices that are alive and rampant in this country. And furthermore, there's nothing that I've seen today, and I don't think is likely to be seen tomorrow, that says this country is willing to take on the biggest political challenge in our lifetime, and that is to eradicating white supremacist terrorism in this country and speaking directly to those who orchestrated the January 6th insurrection and to those who are sympathetic to that cause and do what is right and what is required. This country has forever avoided a reckoning. Our dear brother Malcolm said it clearly, and he was chastised for saying it, but that didn't make him incorrect when he talked about the chickens coming home to roost. January the 6th was a lot about chickens coming home to roost. We better wake up and recognize that there's a lesson there. And if we fail to heed the lesson again this time, pretty much what we saw on January 6th shows that there is gathering capacity to do real violent harm in this country. And one last thing, Pastor Brother Tyler, Reverend Tyler, one last piece, and that is that we have a Republican Party and a Democratic Party that really owes its allegiance not to everyday working people in this country, and certainly not to black people, but they owe their allegiance to the corporate masters that put them in office. We know that. We're not naive. We've been trying as best we can to gather our political power and strength as a countervailing element in the American zeitgeist to fight on behalf of justice. We've got to organize better, longer, stronger, and smarter just to have a chance. But you're absolutely right in how you read the sixth and how you read the climate right now. I could not agree with you more.
Rev, let me ask you a question about this because so one of the critiques that I've always had, especially around black churches of the prosperity gospel mindset, is that they really propped up white supremacy and white supremacy capitalism. And so, one of the challenges that we have to undo is that even there's parts of the black church that are at fault for all of this. And I appreciated you talking about the economic conditions that have to change. It's like, how do we help people see a different way to an economic situation, that capitalism is not the end all, the be all, especially unfettered capitalism that actually is rooted deeply in white supremacy and the embodiment of black bodies as capital and as part of continuing to be product and not being humanity. So, I mean, how would you be thinking about addressing that?
Again, you're hitting on all the important questions that we're asking ourselves at Faith in Action, and I'm sure other social justice organizations are asking themselves in this new moment. It's pretty clear that the church has betrayed the commandments of God, and at the risk of sounding like one of those conservative hail and brimstone clergy persons, I do take a very strong and strident position, particularly in the evangelical church, but also elements within the black church that consistently betray the insistence in Christianity that the church always be located on the side of justice, stands with those who cannot stand as strongly for themselves, and then help them develop the capacity to do so. Jesus was very clear in his public ministry that he came not to support the rich, came not to double down on the way in which they saw the world, but came to confound them with a simple message that there is no love, there is no kingdom here on earth without a deep, deep commitment to the most fundamental tenets of the gospel, which requires us to love our neighbor radically, to insist on justice, to stand in the light of what is right, to defy power and might that is used recklessly to destroy and to extract and to exploit. Truthfully, when we are the black church, we are an irritant to the kind of capitalism that has created such inequality and continues to grind down the beautiful brothers and sisters all around this country who are asking for nothing more than an opportunity to grow up and to live a life, some kind of meaning and purpose. I think when we are at our best, we are certainly that irritant. But I think when we're at our best, we're able to compete on an equal playing field, and maybe even in key and critical moments in our history, we outcompete the forces of white supremacist capitalism and hegemony. And that's what we're required to do in this moment.
Rev, I want to ask you, could you hang on with us for just a few more minutes? We got to take a quick break, but actually people are calling in because they want to talk to you. So
sure.
Can you give us a few more minutes?
Oh, it's my honor, my privilege. Thank you both. Thank both of you, dear brothers, for having me on.
All right, well, great. Hang on a minute. Don't hang up. And we're going to get ready to take a break. You're listening to the Reverend Alvin Herring, National Executive Director of Faith in Action, the nation's largest faith-based organizing movement. We're taking your calls, 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. This is Dwayne Royster, along with Mark Kelly Tyler, sitting in for Mighty Braxton. We'll be right back.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. Announcing the Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for February is Long Time Coming, Reckoning with Race in America by Michael Eric Dyson, a New York Times bestseller that traces the roots of racism from slavery and Jim Crow to police brutality. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, February 9th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit WordRadio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on Word. This is Dwayne Royster, and along with special guest host Mark Kelly Tyler, and we have the Reverend Alvin Herring, National Executive Director of Faith in Action, the nation's largest faith-based organizing movement, on the line with us right now. And thank you, Reverend Herring, for being here with us and agreeing to hang on for a little while longer. We have some calls coming in. And again, if you want to get in this conversation with Reverend Herring, give us a call, 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. First up, we have LC from Old City. LC, welcome to Solutions on Word. How are you this evening?
And a great evening to both of you, dear pastors, and your guest, the Reverend Herring.
Yes.
Okay. I'm calling. I don't know if this is the time to insert this, but you had another minister on earlier who was
Elder Melanie DeBose. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. My question, once again, is about the Collaborative Reform Initiative, which was an assessment of deadly force in the Philadelphia Police Department. That was issued in 2015. And I want to know, is this committee that was approved as a ballot question, are they considering the recommendations that are listed in this document? And I believe it starts on page 98 of the document and runs through, 135, something like that. Because they have some recommendations that I believe apply to some of those areas that the earlier minister, she mentioned. And one of the ones that I'm really concerned about is the oversight. Oops, hold me. I'm sorry. I thought I had put it on mute. I thought that the oversight, this oversight committee, was going to be able to be sure to review any officer-involved shootings. Is that correct?
So I'm going to turn this over to Reverend Tyler, who was actually doing a lot of organizing work back then around the policing when the Department of Justice did that investigation. But I want to do a follow-up to Reverend Herring about that as well, because the work that Faith in Action does nationally is also addressing these very issues. So, Reverend Tyler, you are muted, sir. Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, let me just say, first of all, thanks, LC, for being a really informed citizen, because that's what it's going to take to hold everybody accountable, whether it's the police, elected officials, whatever. And so the report that you're talking about is the COPS report, COPS, not COPS, but it was an acronym for something that the Obama administration created through the Department of Justice. They went around through cities at the invitation of the department commissioner. In this case, it was Commissioner Ramsey, invited them to come in and do an audit of the use of force, use of deadly force. They found 40 some odd things that were wrong, gave about 90 plus recommendations on how to fix it. To my knowledge, a lot of the smaller things have been addressed, but the more substantive things remain problematic. And one of them is really the lack of oversight and the lack of participation of citizens in holding police accountable. I mean, at the end of the day, what we know is this. Cops have proven repeatedly that they cannot police themselves. There's an inherent conflict of interest in trying to hold accountable somebody that you say may have to have your back in the street one day. Elected officials have proven that they are incapable of holding police accountable because they are afraid of the backlash of looking soft on crime. So we need to take it to the next step, which is to give it to civilians who are independent, who don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, but their interest is in public safety. That also includes the safety of police officers, for that matter, because some of the things that would be investigated by an independent police commission would also be issues that officers bring about other officers, sexual assault, sexual misconduct, and all a plethora of issues that often get swept under the rug because nobody wants to do something to their boy. So listen, we are all about using that report and also inviting a Biden DOJ to come in and do an updated report and to take it a step further. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Reverend Herring, I wanted to get you to jump in here because, I mean, certainly this last year has been a lot about policing. Well, I mean, the last 6 years. And we should say that the first time you actually met Reverend Tyler was in Ferguson. We were all in Ferguson together on the ground working things out. Was that the first time y'all met?
Oh, can I say something, please? Yes, if you would like the honor of being tear gassed, just hang out with Reverend Al Herring for about 15 minutes. That's all it takes is about 15 minutes. I assure you, he will hook you up.
Wow. I tell you what, I got a lot of courage. We'll talk. I got a lot of courage and strength standing next to Reverend Tyler on the streets of Ferguson on some of those nights when it was pretty clear that the only thing restraining a rabid police department was the will of God. And that brother's courage and strength certainly moved me and gave me the capacity to hang in there with him. It wasn't the first time we met, but the first time we met under those circumstances, and I was proud to be at that moment with him. I do want to comment on the justice's question. First of all, LC, God bless you. That's how you stay informed. And to show that kind of interest in what many people would not take the time to examine. I have the report sitting right in front of me. Starting on page 75, as Reverend Tyler said, there are about 40 recommendations all over to span the whole gamut on use of force, how to conduct a crime scene, how to transport both the accused and those who are victims, how to handle weapons, the issue of how to handle a weapon that's been discharged. I mean, there's a number of different the requisites around cameras and OC spray. Everyone should do what LC has done. They should read this document. Now, here's how it matters to me running a national organization, and Reverend Tyler really hit on it so eloquently. I'm just so appreciative of following you two brothers, and I'm not trying to be an echo chamber, but I think this is a moment where some common sense is prevailing, and that is that the fundamental reform that's needed in policing in this country is all about the fundamental intention of this country to once and for real believe in justice, believe in equal justice under the law. And we get the kind of police force we get when we fail to commit ourselves to that standard, equal justice under the law. We get a violent police force when we fail to acknowledge our love for one another. We get a police force that's full of white supremacist terrorists, like those who showed up on January the 6th. Many of them were police officers, sworn officers from all around the country. We get that kind of policing when we fail to address the fundamental inequities and make ourselves committed to what real justice looks like. And probably the most fundamental failure on the part of American policing is that we fail to pull from within our own community those persons that we are asking, that we're requiring, if you will, training to protect and serve us. And, you know, certainly there's plenty of evidence that black cops will abuse black people, Latino cops will abuse Latino people. We get that. But when you pull police force or security force from within your own community, and then when you apply standards of justice equally across the board, then you can begin to have a police force, rules, regulations, and policies that can work towards what is the expressed aim and intention of law enforcement, that is to protect and serve. Until we get that, we will continue to try to, you know, have reports like this, continue to try to push police forces to do what is right, and we'll have mixed success. But let me just say this also, that at the height of police violence in this country over the last 3 or 4 years, the country has been experiencing some of the lowest incidences and numbers around violence in its history. So just look at this. So where we have a rising number of police officers taking the lives of black and brown brothers and sisters across this country, we have some of the lowest incidents of violent crime in this country. So you can't say that this violence on the part of the police force, policing across the country, you can't say the aggression being shown by police officers is in step with a more dangerous and more violent country, because it's not. And this has never really been about this. This has always been about control. It has always been about putting black and brown folk and poor white folks in a position that our corporate masters require in order to extract from us what they want to extract, exploit us, and how they want to exploit us. Until more of us wake up and recognize that, we're going to continue to get what we got. But thank goodness LC is reading the document and trying to create a conversation. So I thank you, LC, for that question.
Awesome. Let's go to B from Delaware. B, welcome to Solutions on WURD. What's your question for Reverend Herring?
Hello, Bishop Royster, Reverend Tyler, and Heron, our Huckleberry, Troy, Worldwide WURD, and Lomax families, and special kudos to Sarah Lomax Reese and the producers and hosts who keep us informed, connected, and engaged in seeking solutions to our problems. Happy birthday, Amadi. We really wish you many happy returns and hope you're enjoying every second of your special day. Listeners, please keep your memberships going to keep this lifeline open and thriving for our survival. Reverends, the thing that bothers me is that we fail to understand the lessons of history and address where we are at this moment in America. What we have known as America will cease to exist. And what I mean by that is today looks much to me like the Tilden Hayes, as in Biden's presidency coming on the backs of the newly freed African-American men being able to vote and voting to give him his majority in that election. And in 1923, when Hitler, using the Nazi Party, as in today's Republican Party, to attempt to overthrow the German government, did not succeed, but came back. The dangers and consequences we will suffer based on the Republicans and Democrats' white supremacist racism today by failing to impeach and strip Trump of the emoluments of the office of the presidency, and by failing to swiftly and harshly punish those who participated in the insurrection and Capitol building destruction, will be devastating and very much like the racist post-Reconstruction period in American history, when Congress abandoned the African-American community by removing the post-Civil War federal troops. We got Jim Crow, the KKK's reign of terror across the country, and the black codes devastated and destroyed the lives and fortunes of newly freed, enslaved African-Americans. It's no accident at a time when we are talking about reparations that this militarized white supremacist terrorist and reign of terror is being condoned by our national leaders. Hitler rose after 1923 to come back and wreak the devastation that he wrought on the world. If Trump is not punished, and if those insurrectionists are not punished swiftly and immediately, they will stay in our communities to continue the reign of terror. The white supremacy will continue to give us the kind of devastation that we've had in terms of loss of lives and loss of fortune and loss of communities in the African American community.
Hey, B, do you have a question for Reverend Reverend Herring, because he's got to leave shortly, and I want to make sure we have a chance to hear back from him.
I think he really addressed much of what I'm saying. I'd like him to comment on our need to take heed of the lessons of history, lest, as he said earlier, we find ourselves right back where we started. Yeah.
Thanks, B. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank B as well. And I want to thank you, Bishop Royster and Reverend Tyler, for the real public service you do with this radio show and this radio station. Because when you provide an opportunity for persons such as B to share her wisdom and her understanding of history in the past and her passion for change, you create and stimulate a conversation in our community that's absolutely infectious and it builds people's power. So God bless you, B, for both the lovely way in which you came on to the show and for your observations about history. Let me just remind us of something really quickly, just that's very connected to what we witnessed January the 6th. And I think people have really forgotten about this. I haven't forgotten about it because I was alive during this moment. That's November 3rd, 1979, in Greensboro, North Carolina. The Communist Workers' Party, which was really just everyday poor people trying to make a living, they, in the hood, held a rally to confront the violence of the KKK. And Ku Klux Klan members, with the complete support and help of the police, came into that community and shot it up, killed 5 folks, injured 20 or 30 more. Many of those injuries were grievous injuries. And there was a trial, mostly white, if not all white jury. Everybody was exonerated. To this day, that instance of white supremacist terrorism has gone unresponded to. No one, you have 5 people dead, you have scores of people injured, many of them grievously injured, and no one, the courts could find no one responsible for that. A couple of years ago, actually it may have been last year, the city council in Greensboro, the city, made an official apology to the massacre in 1979, but said nothing about, but took no responsibility, did not use the opportunity to publicly chastise the Greensboro Police Department and its conduct, did nothing to make reparations to those who were harmed, families who were ripped apart. And this is what we are dealing with as black folks in this country. And the reason why I bring that up in context to January 6th is that we have 2 very powerful struggles. One is a struggle against armed and violent white supremacists in this country. But the other struggle, which is deeper and more fundamental, is the fundamental struggle around this country intending to provide justice for all and intending to do right by black people. And in the absence of the latter, we're going to keep getting the former. And let me make one other assertion, that as this kind of fundamental white supremacy, which is rife through all of our systems and functions and policies and laws in this country, the longer it goes unaddressed, the longer we fail to hold ourselves as a nation accountable, the further the devastation is going to be for the American people. For the first time in probably 2, maybe 3 generations, life expectancy for white Americans has begun to go down. And we already knew that life expectancy for black folk, particularly black men, were compromised. for sisters as well. And I love sisters, and I know sisters stand with us, and we stand with them. But at the very bottom of the life expectancy list, you will find black men. But for the first time in a couple of generations, life expectancy for white folks is going down. Some would say, well, it's because of the opioid epidemic in this country, pandemic, actually. There's a lot of truth in that. But we have to remember what role drugs play in the life of a person, of a family, and of a community. When you can't deal with a reality, when it is too hard or feels impossible, you try to change your reality, and often through the instrument of drugs and alcohol, you change your reality to the detriment of yourself and others. I just want to kind of locate an answer to B's question inside of that there's this fundamental wrong that has yet to be righted. And so then what's required of us today? Should we then not pay attention to the efforts to impeach the president? We absolutely should pay attention to that. Should we not be interested in those who planned and executed the January 6th insurrection? Should we not pay attention to them being pursued across the country and prosecuted and convicted? We should absolutely pay attention to that. Should we not vote? No, we absolutely should vote. There's not one thing that we must do, but there's many things that we have to do. And I think, to disabuse ourselves of the notion that there's a magic bullet out there would be really helpful. And B's question kind of puts that, helps us kind of put this in context, so I appreciate the question. I'm sorry for the long answer, but I know that everybody who's listening to this radio show, I know the three of us, these are the things that keep us up late at night. We're trying to figure out and think about them in ways that allow us to build power where we have opportunities to build power.
Reverend Herring, we appreciate that. And actually, while you were while you were talking, my phones and my iPad started lighting up because Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer just announced that February 8th will begin the trial for Donald Trump. So one of the ways towards healing is actually addressing and calling out the evil that exists around us and holding it accountable. So deeply appreciate it. Hey, we appreciate you taking this extra time with us. I know you were not signed up to do 2 segments, but we appreciate your willingness to do that. We always love having you on the show, and we look forward to having you back on in the near future. You've been listening to the Reverend Alvin Herring, National Executive Director of Faith in Action, who leads one of the nation's largest faith-based organizing movements working towards social justice. All right, you've been listening to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster along with special guest co-host Mark Kelly Tyler. We'll be right back after these messages.
An undercover FBI lawyer infiltrates a group of Bay Area climate activists in A Spy in the Struggle by award-winning author Aya De Leon. Sexy and gripping, A Spy in the Struggle is an espionage novel that puts a uniquely black, feminist lens to the issues of climate change, social justice, and corporate corruption. The Washington Post calls it a passionately felt thriller that will have you on the edge of your seat. Pick up your copy of A Spy in the Struggle and visit ayadeleon.com. That's AYADELEON.com.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show, with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster along with our special guest co-host, the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. Just had a great conversation with the Reverend Alvin Herring. Man, Reverend Herring is deep and just really has his finger on the pulse of the political challenges and the I want to say the challenges of conscience of our nation, and so appreciated him being here with us.
No, I agree with you. I mean, so we're around, Reverend Al all the time. And so it's like you can think you're in a deep conversation, like, we're having a conversation and we think we're like deep. Then Al rolls up. See, brother, let me just tell you. See, what you brothers got to understand is, next thing you know, it's like, how do we not see that?
I know. Well, look, we got a caller on the line, Tyrone from North Philadelphia. Tyrone, welcome to Solutions on WURD. How are you this evening?
I am wonderful, gentlemen. Peace and blessings to everyone there, and much love and respect to my WURD family. My question, well, first of all, brothers, before I get to my question, I really want to thank each and every one of you for all the work that y'all have done for us to have a new breath of fresh air in this country and more than likely across the world. But my question is there going to be any type of movement to help those folks the protesters who protested during the George Floyd debacle, George Floyd murder, and all of the other protests, the folks who was arrested for protesting, when you got someone who killed two other protests who is sitting home just, I guess taking it easy. So I just want to know if there anything that's going to help bring some solace to help those folks who are still behind bars, while all these other folks who have done things worse than what most folks who are in jail for,
Yeah, thanks, Tyrone.
Is there going to be any help or any kind of movement to try to right that wrong situation?
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Tyrone. Appreciate the question. I actually don't know where things stand right now. There were charges alleged against a lot of people that were dropped during the George Floyd protest here in the city of Philadelphia, the uprising that occurred. Now, I know that folk that committed deeper property damage and things had deeper challenges, but I don't know for those that were just out there protesting. I know I was out there, Reverend Tyler was out there. We were both engaged heavily. Again, Reverend Tyler, I don't know about Reverend Herring being the only one that got tear gas, because you got tear gas on 52nd Street while you were out one night. So,
yeah.
And there's been a series of hearings and commissions that have been looking at that. Reverend Tyler was a part of that. I don't know if you want to address any of this at all.
Well, I mean, I think, to one of the questions, you're talking about Kyle Rittenhouse as well, the young man who shot and killed two protesters, shot and killed two white people who were out there protesting on behalf of the Floyd family. I'm sorry, the Jacob Blake family. That was actually in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so, he's out. He's out on bail, right? Now, you could argue he should not be out on bail, but he's out on bail. Bail is often given in cases like this. So he's out kicking and having a good time. That does not mean he won't be convicted. So, and remember, he didn't shoot black people, right? So when a jury has to consider this, this is a whole different, scenario than what typically, comes before them in these kind of things. My suspicion is he's going to be found guilty and will do some time. Now we all know being found guilty, being sentenced is one thing. Serving the sentence out in its entirety is something totally different. As it relates to a lot of the other charges, I want to talk about Breonna Taylor in Louisville, because I think that's probably a better comparison, especially if you're talking about what's going on in the U.S. Capitol and those folk. Tyrone, do you know that Daniel Cameron is a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity?
Did not know that.
I just found that out tonight. A friend of mine who's a Sigma shared that with me, really kind of just in disgust that, their fraternity brother is, acting in this way. The state attorney general, who was bringing up felony charges on people who protested by sitting on his lawn. he said that that is trying to intimidate a public official with a threat of force, and through felony charges on people, which would typically be a misdemeanor. You would just get like a citation, a ticket, you pay it, and move on about your business. And yet in the Capitol, we witnessed people go in, release bodily fluids in that place, steal laptops, the speaker's podium, disrespect the chair, and now they're all crying the blues saying, you know, I just got caught up in the moment. Mind you, the vast majority were allowed to walk out free. Even the people they engaged with, they didn't try to, you know, to handcuff or to put those zip ties on them or anything of that nature. I just think that there's such a large problem with the double standard in the way that the criminal justice system treats black people. And we're going to have to just take ownership of this. That's why, again, I keep coming back to independent police oversight, that you cannot trust the existing system to do right. We are going to have to jump in and do what we can and exert our own authority. And I just believe that that's where it begins.
Yeah, I think, well, it's actually interesting. There's actually an article on Huffington Post that one of the rioters, the insurrectionists, the white supremacist domestic terrorists, if we're going to use all the terms, actually who showed video of himself going into the Capitol 2 weeks ago, actually came back for the inauguration and was prepared to cause more problems. He's been caught and he is now being held in jail without bail. Well,
I'm sorry, was this the Minotaur?
No, this wasn't the Minotaur. It was somebody else. But they said that this particular guy is trying to become the poster boy for the movement. You know, so I don't even know what to do with all this. I honestly don't know what to do.
But listen, again, I mean, so go back to where we started tonight, right? And so when you don't, let's just talk about just raising children. When you let children get away with everything, they grow up and become Donald Trump. When you indulge them and you tell them that they're wrong is right, when you don't correct them, when you don't stop them, they're incorrigible. You can't do anything with them, right? And so I think Reverend Herron just touched on this as well a few moments ago, that if we continue to allow people to get away with this, if the president does not pay a political price for this, they're not talking about sending them to jail. An impeachment trial just says, that's it. We're going to take away your perks and say with our action that what you did was wrong. But if that does not happen, then it says to him and it says to everyone else who follows him that what he did was not wrong. If it was wrong, they would have convicted him. And it just encourages this to happen again and again. And I mean, at some point, we're going to all have to pay for this one way or the other. And I just pray that Congress would have some real courage and stop acting like cowards.
I hope that they would. Well, you know, it's not Congress, it's the Republicans. Let's just put it where it is, right? It's the Republicans and Joe Manchin in West Virginia that need to stop acting like cowards. So the Democratic Center from West Virginia, who votes with the Republicans half the time. So, I mean, that's really who has to have some backbone and some courage in this particular moment. And also the Department of Justice, right, who also needs to go firmly after all of these folk and other officials, including Rudy Giuliani, including Trump family members that stoked the fires on that particular day, including other Congress people that were stoking the fires on that day, including the Congress people that were busy showing people around the Capitol before it happened and letting them know where the soft spots were in the Capitol. Yes, all of that and more has to be held accountable, and it will be up to the Department of Justice to make sure that that happens. All right, everybody. Well, we are out of here for this week's edition of Solutions on WURD. Thank you, Reverend Tyler, for sitting in tonight for Amadi. And Amadi, we hope that you are celebrating your birthday and you have enjoyed yourself, whatever you were doing this evening. We thank you, Troy, for holding everything down on the boards. We're grateful to Elder Melanie DeBose, co-director of Power Live Free, for joining us tonight, as well as the Reverend Alvin Herring, National Executive Director of Faith in Action, for kind of giving us some insight and thinking about how do we move this country forward in this particular moment in time. And of course, to all of you that called in tonight, everybody that's chatting it up on Facebook and on YouTube, we deeply appreciate you. We'll be back on Solutions next Friday at 5 p.m., but you'll be able to see Reverend Tyler and myself early Monday morning at 6 a.m. for the Power Hour. So you can always join us here Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest news happenings around Philadelphia and, of course, our opinions. Now, listen, do us a favor. Go out, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Stay tuned for the Envy McKee Show. We'll see you soon. Peace.